The stars had never looked so beautiful. Captain Yuna stood at the observation deck of the Horizon's Promise, watching the swirling colors of the nebula fade behind them. In 3 hours, her ship would arrive at the Valoran capital station. In 3 hours, humanity would meet its first alien empire face to face. She had dreamed of this moment since she was a little girl in Bazen, looking up at the night sky and wondering what was out there. Now she knew. The Valarans were out there. They ruled 3 galaxies. They had conquered hundreds of species. And they wanted to talk. Captain. Dr. Taiho appeared beside her. He was a tall man with gentle eyes and silver streaks in his black hair. As the chief xenolinguist, he had spent 2 years learning everything humanity knew about Valoran language and culture. "Are you nervous?" Yuna smiled. Terrified. "You?" "I haven't slept in 3 days." He laughed softly. "But this is what we train for. This is why we're here." Behind them, the ship hummed with activity. 47 crew members prepared for the most important moment in human history. Lieutenant Jisoo ran last-minute security checks. Engineer Dowan made sure every system was perfect. Medic Sujin organized her medical supplies. Everyone had a job. Everyone was ready. Or so they thought. The Valoran capital station was massive. It stretched across space like a metal moon, covered in lights and towers and docking ports. Thousands of ships flew around it like insects around a hive. Some were as big as cities. The Horizon's Promise looked like a toy next to them. "They're showing off," Lieutenant Jisoo said. She was a compact woman with sharp eyes and short hair. Her hand rested on the weapon at her hip, even though she knew it would be useless here. "They want us to feel small. Let them show off," Yuna replied. "We're not here to compete. We're here to make friends." The docking was smooth. The humans were met by a Valoran escort, tall creatures with gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes like polished stone. They moved with the confidence of beings who had never lost a war. They looked at the humans the way a person might look at ants. The Great Hall of the Valoran Council was designed to intimidate. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. The walls were covered with the symbols of conquered species, hundreds of them, arranged like trophies. The message was clear. We have defeated everyone. You are nothing special. High Commander Desik waited on a raised platform. He was larger than the other Valarans, with golden bands around his arms marking his rank. His stone eyes fixed on Captain Yuna as she approached. "So," he said, his voice deep and cold, "these are the humans. The species that crawled out of their gravity, well, only 3 centuries ago. The species that thinks it deserves a place among the stars." Yuna felt her crew tense behind her. She kept her face calm. "We don't think we deserve anything, High Commander. We're here to learn and to share. We believe the galaxy is big enough for friendship." Desik made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Friendship? How primitive." He leaned forward. "Tell me, Captain, what do you have to offer the Dominion? What could you possibly give us that we cannot simply take?" This was the test. Yuna had prepared for it. "We offer perspective. Fresh eyes. New ideas. We've solved problems in ways other species haven't imagined. We've survived challenges that should have destroyed us. We're not powerful, High Commander, but we're creative. And we're stubborn." For a long moment, Desik said nothing. His stone eyes studied her like she was an interesting insect. Then he waved one of his 4 hands. "You speak well for a primitive. Perhaps there is some use for you after all." The negotiations began. For 3 days, the humans met with Valoran officials. They discussed trade. They discussed technology. They discussed borders and treaties and mutual interests. Dr. Taiho translated. Captain Yuna negotiated. Lieutenant Jisoo watched for threats. Something was wrong. Yuna could feel it. The Valorans were too polite, too patient. They asked strange questions about Earth's defenses, about human population centers, about the locations of their colony worlds. They smiled too much. On the fourth day, the trap was sprung. Yuna was in her quarters when the alarm started. She ran to the bridge and found chaos. The Lauren soldiers were everywhere. Her crew was fighting, but they were outnumbered 10-1. Lieutenant Jisoo had knocked down 3 soldiers before they finally subdued her. Engineer Dohan was dragged from his engine room. Medic Sujin was pulled from the medical bay. Captain Yuna. Desig's voice came through the speakers. Your species has been judged. You are too dangerous to remain free. Too unpredictable. The Dominion has decided that Earth will submit or Earth will burn. You and your crew will help us deliver this message. They were hostages. All 47 of them. The detention complex was called the Silence. It floated in the dark space between stars, far from any help. The Valorans designed it to break minds. The walls absorbed sound. The lights never changed. The temperature shifted from freezing to burning without warning. No species had ever escaped. No prisoner had ever lasted more than 2 cycles without begging for death. The humans were pushed into cells. The doors sealed. The darkness closed in. Yuna could hear her crew through the thin walls. Young Ensign Hyok was crying. Private Mireille was cursing. Dr. Taiho was trying to calm everyone down. A Valoran guard walked past her cell. He stopped and looked at her through the small window. His stone eyes were curious. You will break, he said. They all break. Your species is weak, soft. You have no natural armor. No claws, no poison. You are prey animals who learn to use tools. In 2 weeks, you will be begging to tell us everything about Earth. In a month, you will help us conquer your own people. Yuna looked at him. She was tired. She was scared. She was alone in the dark, far from home, with no hope of rescue. Her crew was counting on her. Her planet was counting on her. She smiled. The guard stepped back. Something about that smile disturbed him. It was not the smile of a beaten creature. It was the smile of someone who knew something he didn't. You don't understand humans, Yuna said softly. You've conquered hundreds of species. You think you know what breaks people, but you've never met anything like us. You are prey, the guard repeated, but his voice was less certain now. We survived ice ages. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived wars that should have ended our species. We survived because we don't know how to give up. We don't have armor or claws because we never needed them. Our weapon is up here. She tapped her head. Our weapon is in here. She put her hand over her heart. The guard walked away quickly. Behind him, Yuna heard something unexpected. Her crew had stopped crying. They had heard her. And now, one by one, they were starting to talk to each other through the walls, sharing stories, making plans, finding hope. Yuna sat down in her dark cell. The silence pressed in around her. But in her mind, she was already fighting back. She thought about her crew. 47 people who trusted her. 47 people who were counting on her to get them home. She thought about Earth, with its blue oceans and green forests and 7 billion people who didn't know their lives depended on what happened in this dark prison. She would not fail them. She would not break. And somewhere, deep in her heart, a fire began to burn. It was a fire that would spread. A fire that would consume the silence itself. The Valarans thought they had caged animals. They didn't understand. They had locked themselves in with something far more dangerous than any weapon. They had locked themselves in with human will. And human will does not break. It bends, it waits, it plans, and then it strikes. The first week in the silence was the hardest. The Valorans knew exactly how to break prisoners. They had perfected their methods over thousands of years and hundreds of conquered species. They controlled everything: the light, the temperature, the food, the water. They could make a prisoner feel completely alone, completely helpless, completely without hope. But they had never imprisoned humans before. Captain Yuna woke on the 7th day to the sound of singing. It was soft at first, barely more than a whisper. Ensign Hyok was singing a song his grandmother had taught him. It was an old Korean lullaby, simple and sweet. His voice shook, but he kept singing. Then another voice joined him. Private Mireille, 2 cells down. She didn't know the words, so she hummed along. Then Dr. Taiho started singing from somewhere further away. Then Lieutenant Jisoo, then Engineer Do-hwan. Within minutes, 47 voices were singing together through the walls of the silence. The sound filled the dark corridors. The guards stopped their patrols and listened. They had never heard anything like it. When the song ended, there was a moment of quiet. Then Yuna heard laughter. Actual laughter. Her crew was laughing in the darkness of an unbreakable prison. The Valoran guards didn't understand. Laughter was supposed to die in the silence. Hope was supposed to die. But these strange pink creatures with their soft skin and their weak bodies refused to follow the rules. On the 10th day, the Valarans increased the pressure. The temperature dropped so low that frost formed on the walls. The humans huddled in their cells, shivering. They had only thin prison clothes. They should have frozen. Instead, they started exercising. Lieutenant Jisoo called out instructions through the walls. Push-ups, sit-ups, running in place, jumping. The humans moved their bodies until they were warm again. Their breath made clouds in the cold air, but they were alive. They were fighting. "This is insane," a young guard said to his commander. "They should be dying. They should be begging us to turn up the heat. Instead, they're exercising?" The commander had no answer. He ordered the temperature raised back to normal. The humans had won the first battle. On the 10th day, the interrogations began. Captain Yuna was taken to a small room with bright lights and a metal chair. High Commander Desik was waiting for her. He looked angry. The reports from the silence were not what he expected. "Your crew should be broken by now," he said. "Every other species breaks within 2 weeks. Why won't you break?" Yuna sat in the chair. Her body ached from the cold and the hunger, but she kept her back straight. "I told you before. You don't understand humans. Then help me understand." Desik leaned forward. "What makes you so special? You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Your planet tried to kill you with ice and fire and disease. You should have died 100 times. How are you still here?" Yuna thought about the question. It was a good question. Why were humans still here? Why had they survived when so many other species had failed? "Because we're stubborn," she said finally. "Because when the world tries to kill us, we don't lie down and die. We fight, we adapt, we help each other. We tell stories about the heroes who came before us, and we try to be worthy of those stories." "Stories?" Desik made a dismissive sound. "You survive because of stories? Stories are powerful. They remind us who we are. They remind us what we can be. Right now, in those cells, my people are telling each other stories. They're sharing memories of home. They're talking about the people they love and the things they want to do when they get back. Those stories keep them alive." Desik stared at her for a long moment. Then he pressed a button on his chair. Pain shot through Yuna's body like lightning. She gasped but did not scream. The pain lasted for 30 seconds. It felt like 30 years. Tell me the location of Earth's defense stations, Desik said. Una caught her breath. Her body was shaking. Tears ran down her face. But when she looked at Desik, she was smiling again. That same disturbing smile. No, the pain came again. Longer this time. Worse. Una bit through her lip to keep from screaming. Blood ran down her chin. But she did not break. She did not speak. After 2 hours, Desik sent her back to her cell. He was disturbed in ways he couldn't explain. He had tortured thousands of prisoners. They always broke, always. But this small human woman had looked at him through her pain like she pitied him. Like he was the one who didn't understand something important. When Una returned to her cell, her crew was waiting. They had heard nothing. The interrogation rooms were soundproof, but they knew. They called out to her through the walls. Captain? Captain, are you okay? Una lay on a cold floor, bleeding and broken. But she made herself answer. I'm fine. They're getting desperate. That means we're winning. A cheer went up through the silence. 46 voices shouting in triumph. The guards covered their ears and hurried away. They were starting to be afraid of their prisoners. The days continued. The Valorans tried everything. They starved the humans so the humans shared what little food they had, making sure everyone got something. They isolated the humans, so the humans invented a tapping code to communicate through the walls. They tried to turn the humans against each other with lies and tricks, but the humans trusted each other completely. Medic Sujin became the heart of the resistance. She moved from cell to cell during her rare moments of freedom, checking on everyone, treating injuries with nothing but torn cloth and hope. She taught the others how to clean their wounds, how to stay healthy, how to keep their minds sharp. The body can survive almost anything, she told them, as long as the mind stays strong. Keep your mind strong, and we'll get through this. 1 month passed. Then 2. The Valoran guards began requesting transfers to other posts. They couldn't explain why, but being near the humans made them uncomfortable. The humans never stopped watching them, never stopped singing, never stopped laughing. A Valoran psychologist was brought in to study the prisoners. He spent 3 days observing them. On the 4th day, he submitted his report. His superiors found him afterwards, sitting alone in his office, staring at nothing. What did you find? They asked him. Something that shouldn't exist, he said. Their will? It doesn't work like ours. When we apply pressure, they don't weaken. They strengthen. When we cause them pain, they don't hate each other. They hate us. But not in a way that destroys them. It focuses them, unites them. He shook his head. I've studied 500 species. I've never seen anything like this. What do you recommend? The psychologist was quiet for a long time. I recommend we release them. Or kill them. But we cannot keep them here. Why not? Because they're not breaking. They're preparing. I don't know what for. But whatever they're planning, we don't want to be here when it happens. His superiors ignored his warning. They were the mighty Valoran Dominion. They had conquered galaxies. They would not be frightened by 47 soft creatures from a small blue planet. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake was not noticing the changes in the silence itself. The other prisoners, the broken ones from a dozen other species, had started watching the humans too. For years, they had been empty, hollow, dead inside while their bodies continued to breathe. But now something was waking up inside them. They heard the human songs. They saw the human smiles. They felt something they had forgotten existed, hope. On the 63rd day, a prisoner from the Kalari species, a small being with blue skin who had been in the silence for 10 years, spoke for the first time since his capture. He said one word. Just one word, in broken human language that he had learned by listening through the walls. Fight. In her cell, Captain Yuna heard him. She pressed her hand against the cold wall and smiled. Not the disturbing smile she showed the guards. A real smile. A warm smile. The silence was learning to speak. And what it was saying was revolution. 3 months had passed since the humans were thrown into the silence. The Valoran High Command expected 47 broken prisoners begging for mercy. Instead, they got something much worse. The prison was changing. Dr. Taiho had started it without really meaning to. He was a teacher by nature, and teachers cannot help but teach. Through the thin walls of his cell, he began telling stories. At first, they were stories about Earth, about the blue oceans and the tall mountains and the cities that glowed at night. The other human prisoners listened, remembering home. But the other prisoners listened too. The ones from other species. The broken ones. Tell us more, they would whisper. Tell us about your world. So Taiho told them about human history. He told them about the great plagues that killed millions and how humanity kept going. He told them about the world wars that nearly destroyed everything and how humanity rebuilt. He told them about the ice ages and the famines and the disasters and how humanity refused to die. We are not special, he would say. We are just stubborn. We don't know when to give up. And neither do you. You've survived this place for years. You're stronger than you know. The words spread through the silence like fire through dry grass. Prisoners who hadn't spoken in years started whispering to each other. Prisoners who had forgotten their own names started remembering. The humans had brought something into this dark place that the Valorans had tried so hard to destroy. They had brought hope. Lieutenant Jisoo watched the guards carefully. She watched their schedules. She counted their numbers. She memorized their patrol routes. Every piece of information went into her head like pieces of a puzzle. There are 42 guards on rotation, she reported to Captain Yuna one night, speaking through the crack in their cell doors. They change shifts every 12 hours. There are only 6 guards on duty during the 3rd shift, when most prisoners are supposed to be sleeping. The armory is on level 3, 3rd corridor, behind a door with a 4-digit code. How do you know the code? Yuna asked. I watched them enter it. Humans have better eyesight at distance than Valorans. They didn't know I could see their fingers. Yuna smiled in the darkness. Good work. Keep watching. Engineer Do-hwan was working on his own project. The Valorans had taken everything from the prisoners, but they hadn't thought to check Do-hwan's shoes. Inside the sole of his left boot, he had hidden a small piece of wire, a fragment of metal, and a tiny power cell from his broken communicator. In the darkness of his cell, he worked every night. His fingers bled from handling the sharp metal. His eyes ached from the strain. But slowly, piece by piece, he was building something. What is it? Private Mireille asked one day when she glimpsed his work through the food slot. Insurance, Do-hwan replied. When we make our move, we'll need to disable the suppression fields. This little thing will give us 90 seconds. Maybe less. It'll have to be enough. The Valoran guards were getting nervous. They didn't understand what was happening, but they could feel it. The prison felt different. The prisoners felt different. Even the ones who had been there for decades seemed to stand taller, speak louder, look the guards in the eye. One guard, a young Valoran named Keseth, found himself assigned to the human wing. He was supposed to watch them, report any suspicious behavior. Instead, he found himself watching them with something like curiosity. The humans were strange. They cared for each other in ways that made no sense. When one of them got sick, the others gave up their own food to help. When one of them was taken for interrogation, the others sang encouragement until they returned. They touched each other constantly, hands on shoulders, arms around waists, heads leaning together. Why do you do that? Keseth asked Captain Una one day. The touching. What purpose does it serve? Una looked at him with those calm brown eyes. It reminds us we're not alone. It shares strength. It says, I'm here, and I care about you. But it has no tactical value. Everything has tactical value. You just don't understand the tactic. She paused. You're not like the other guards, are you? You ask questions instead of giving orders. You watch us like you want to understand, not just control. Keseth felt uncomfortable. He should report this conversation. He should punish her for speaking out of turn. Instead, he asked, what do you see when you look at me? I see someone who is starting to wonder if everything he was taught is true. The words haunted him. That night he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the humans, about their songs and their laughter and their strange, stubborn hope. He had been taught that other species were inferior. He had been taught that the Dominion was always right. But what if those teachings were wrong? On the 75th day, Private Myray organized a protest. It was simple. At exactly midnight, every human prisoner stood up in their cell and faced the door. They didn't move. They didn't speak. They just stood there, staring at the guards who walked past. For 18 hours they stood. No food, no water, no rest. Just 47 humans, standing in perfect silence, staring at their captors with eyes that refused to look away. The guards tried to ignore them. They couldn't. Something about those eyes, calm, patient, unbroken, was more frightening than any weapon. Some guards requested transfers. Others developed nervous habits. One guard had to be sedated after he swore that the humans were looking into his soul. But the real surprise came from the other prisoners. They started standing too. One by one, the broken prisoners from a dozen species rose to their feet. They didn't know why. They just knew that the humans were doing something important, and they wanted to be part of it. By the end of the 18 hours, over 2,000 prisoners were standing in their cells. 2,000 beings who had given up on life, who had accepted their fate, who had let their spirits die. They were standing again. And they were all looking at the guards with the same eyes. We are not broken. We are waiting. And when we move, nothing will stop us. High Commander Thesic received the news on his flagship. He had been expecting regular reports about breaking human spirits. Instead, he got a message that made his blood run cold. The prison is unstable, the warden reported. The humans have infected the other prisoners. They're organizing. They're communicating. They're resisting in ways we've never seen. I recommend immediate termination of all human prisoners before the transmission cut off. When Thesic tried to reconnect, there was only static. He gathered his personal guard and set course for the silence. He would deal with this problem himself. He would show these humans what happened to those who defied the Dominion. In her cell, Captain Una felt the change in the air. Something was coming. Something important. She called to her crew through the walls. Listen to me. All of you. Something is about to happen. I don't know what yet, but I know we need to be ready. Whatever comes next, remember who you are. Remember why we're here. Remember that we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone who's ever been told they're not strong enough, not good enough, not worthy of freedom. She paused. They're going to try to break us one more time. Let's show them what humans are made of. Through the darkness of the silence, 47 voices answered as one. Yes, Captain. And somewhere in the shadows, 2,000 other voices whispered the same words. Yes, Captain. The turning had begun. High Commander Thesic's ship arrived at the Silence on the 93rd day of human imprisonment. He stepped onto the station with 50 of his best soldiers behind him. He expected to find a prison. He found something else entirely. The air felt wrong. The guards looked frightened. The prisoners looked ready. "Report," Desic demanded. The warden was shaking. "Sir, the humans have spread their resistance to every level. The other prisoners are coordinating with them. We've tried to stop it, but every time we punish one group, the others become more determined. It's like fighting a disease that gets stronger the more you attack it." "Nonsense. I'll handle this personally." Desic marched to the human wing. He stood before Captain Yuna's cell and stared at the woman who had caused so much trouble. She looked thin, tired, but her eyes were bright and clear, and she was smiling. "You've caused quite a problem," Desic said. "I underestimated you. That won't happen again." "You didn't underestimate me," Yuna replied calmly. "You underestimated humanity. There's a difference." "There is no difference. You are your species, and your species is finished." He turned to his soldiers. "Prepare the execution." All 47 humans die at dawn. The words echoed through the prison, through the walls, through the vents. 2,000 prisoners heard them, and 2,000 prisoners made a decision. Tonight. It had to be tonight. The signal passed from cell to cell. Human prisoners tapped codes on their walls. Other species passed whispers through the food slots. Within an hour, everyone knew the plan. At shift change, when only 6 guards covered the human wing, when the corridors were quietest, that was when they would strike. Engineer Dohwan held his tiny device in his bleeding hands. 90 seconds. That was all he could give them. 90 seconds without suppression fields. 90 seconds to fight or die. Lieutenant Jisoo had trained them for months. Every human prisoner knew exactly what to do, where to go, who to fight. They had no weapons, but they had desperation and determination and 3 months of built-up rage. At midnight, the lights flickered. Dohwan pressed the button. The suppression fields went down. Cell doors across the station shuddered as their locks lost power. And 47 humans moved as one. Yuna was first out of her cell. She ran straight at the nearest guard and hit him with all her strength. He was bigger, stronger, armored, but he wasn't expecting her. He wasn't expecting any of them. In 3 seconds, he was on the ground. Lieutenant Jisoo took down 2 guards at once. She moved like water, like a storm, like something out of the old martial arts films she used to love. One guard swung at her with a shock baton. She ducked, grabbed his arm, twisted. He screamed. She took his weapon and kept moving. Private Mireille led a group toward the armory. They had no weapons, but they had numbers and anger and 90 seconds of pure chaos. The guards never stood a chance. Ensign Hyok, the youngest, found himself face to face with a massive Valoran soldier. The soldier raised his weapon. Hyok should have run. 3 months ago, he would have run. But that was 3 months ago. He grabbed a metal pipe from a broken wall panel and swung it with everything he had. The soldier fell. Hyok stared at his shaking hands. He had done it. He had actually done it. "Keep moving," Lieutenant Jisoo shouted as she ran past. "We're not done yet." The 90 seconds ended. The suppression fields came back online. But by then, the humans had weapons. They had open doors. They had momentum. And they had 2,000 allies. The other prisoners had been waiting. When the human rebellion began, they rose too. Cell doors that the humans had opened stayed open. Prisoners who had been broken for years found their rage again. They poured into the corridors like a flood. The Valoran guards were overwhelmed. They had never faced anything like this. They had never imagined it was possible. In their entire history, no species had ever fought back after being broken by the silence. But then again, no species had ever been inspired by humans before. Keseth, the young guard who had questioned everything, found himself at a crossroads. He could fight the prisoners. He could die with his fellow guards. Or he could make a choice. He remembered Yuna's words. "You're not like the other guards. You ask questions instead of giving orders." He made his choice. When the prisoners reached the armory, they found the door already open. Cassith stood beside it, his hands raised in surrender. "Take what you need," he said. "I won't stop you." Lieutenant Jisoo hesitated for only a moment. Then she nodded. "Get out of here. Find somewhere safe. When this is over, we'll talk." Medic Sujin worked through the chaos like an angel of mercy. She treated wounded prisoners, regardless of species. She even treated wounded guards, the ones who surrendered peacefully. Some of the rebels didn't understand. "They're the enemy," a Kalari prisoner growled. "Let them die." "No," Sujin said firmly. "That's what they would do. We're better than that. We have to be better than that, or everything we're fighting for means nothing." The Kalari stared at her. Then, slowly, he lowered his weapon. "You humans are strange," he said. "Yes," Sujin agreed. "We are." The fighting moved through the station like wildfire. Level by level, the prisoners took control. The Valoran guards fell back, then fell apart. Some surrendered. Some fought to the end. Some simply ran. And then Captain Yuna found High Commander Desik. He was in the command center, surrounded by his personal guard. They were the best soldiers in the Dominion, armed with the most advanced weapons. Against a tired, unarmed human woman, they should have been unstoppable. But they had watched the prison fall. They had seen their unbreakable system shattered by creatures they considered weak. And now they looked at Captain Yuna with something in their eyes that shouldn't have been there. Fear. "Stand aside," Yuna said to the guards. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. They stood aside. Desik was alone. He held a weapon, a powerful energy pistol that could kill with a single shot. His 4 hands were wrapped around it, pointing at Yuna's heart. "Stop," he commanded. "Stay back." Yuna kept walking. "I'll kill you." "Maybe," she said. "But you won't stop what's already started. You could kill every human in this prison, and it wouldn't matter. We've already won. You've won nothing. You're primitives. We're the species that broke your unbreakable prison. We're the species that inspired 2,000 dead souls to rise again. We're the species that made your guards shake with fear." Yuna stopped just a few feet from Desik. "And we're the species that's about to offer you mercy you don't deserve." "Mercy?" Desik's finger tightened on the trigger. "Why would I accept mercy from you?" "Because the alternative is death. And unlike you, I don't enjoy killing. I never have." Yuna held out her hand. "Surrender your weapon. Order your ships to stand down. Let us leave in peace. And we'll let you live to tell your leaders what happened here." Desik stared at her. This small, soft, fragile creature. This human who should have broken on the first day. She was offering him his life. He raised the weapon. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely aim. "You should be broken," he whispered. "Your species should be begging for mercy." "What are you?" Yuna smiled. That same calm, confident smile she had worn since the first day. "We're human. We've survived things you can't imagine. We've crawled through hell and built civilizations from ashes. You thought 3 months in your quiet little prison would break us?" She shook her head. "You poor fool. You gave us time to plan. You gave us time to prepare. You gave us time to turn your own prisoners against you." Desik's finger trembled on the trigger. He wanted to fire. He needed to fire. But he couldn't, because she was right. Everything she said was right. And he was terrified. The gun clattered to the floor. High Commander Desik, conqueror of 100 worlds, fell to his knees before a human woman. Behind Yuna, the doors burst open. Her crew poured in: Dr. Taiho, Lieutenant Jisoo, Engineer Delwan, Medic Sujin, Private Mirai, Ensign Hyok, all of them alive, all of them free. "Captain," Dr. Taiho said, "we've taken the station. The guards have surrendered. It's over." Yuna looked at her people, her wonderful, stubborn, unbreakable people. Tears streamed down her face. "No," she said softly. "It's not over. It's just beginning." The news spread across the galaxy like a shockwave. At first, no one believed it. The silence, the legendary prison that had broken every species in existence, had fallen. And it had fallen to humans. 47 humans from a small blue planet that most of the galaxy had never heard of. The footage was everywhere. 2,000 freed prisoners from 17 species, standing together in the corridors of the broken station. A small woman with calm eyes and blood on her clothes, accepting the surrender of the great High Commander Desik. Valoran guards throwing down their weapons and walking away with empty eyes. And the humans. Always the humans. Singing, laughing, hugging each other. Caring for the wounded, even the Valoran wounded. What kind of species defeats their enemies and then saves their lives? A commentator from the Kalari homeworld asked on a popular broadcast. What kind of species spends 3 months in that hell and comes out singing? The answer was simple. Humans. In the Valoran council chambers, panic had set in. Their greatest weapon, the fear of the silence, was broken. Other imprisoned species were hearing the news. Other conquered worlds were asking questions. If humans could do it, why couldn't they? Dr. Taiho stood before a communication console on the captured station. He had volunteered to be the voice of the rebellion. His message was broadcast in 17 languages across the galaxy. People of every world and every species. My name is Taiho, and I am human. For 3 months, my crew and I were prisoners of the Valoran Dominion. We were told we would break. We were told no one escapes. We were told to give up hope. We refused. And we did not refuse alone. Thousands of your brothers and sisters, imprisoned in the silence for years, stood with us. They found their courage again. They remembered who they were. Together, we proved that the Dominion is not as powerful as they want you to believe. Now we send this message to the Dominion and to everyone who watches. We do not seek vengeance. We do not want war. But we will never accept tyranny. We will never be slaves. And we will stand with any species, any world, that chooses freedom over fear. The choice is yours. The message ended. But its effects had only begun. On 12 worlds, uprisings began within hours. Species that had been under Valoran control for generations suddenly found their courage. Guards were overthrown. Leaders were challenged. The word human became a rallying cry. In the cold of space, Earth's fleet arrived. Not a rescue mission. There was no one left to rescue. Not a battle group. The station was already won. Just a fleet, 60 ships strong, coming to stand beside their people. Captain Yuna met the fleet commander on the station's bridge. Admiral Sunho was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She looked at Yuna and shook her head. "I came to save you," Sunho said. "Looks like you saved yourselves. We had help." Yuna gestured at the prisoners, the freed prisoners who filled the station. "We couldn't have done it alone. The Council wants to know what happens next. The Dominion is in chaos. Half their fleet is still loyal. The other half doesn't know what to believe. They're scared, Captain. Scared of us. They should be," Lieutenant Jisoo said from behind Yuna. "After what they did, they should be terrified." "But that's not what we want," Dr. Taiho added quickly. "Fear is what they used against others. We have to be different. Better. Admiral Sunho nodded slowly. Then what do we want? Yuna thought about it. She thought about the 3 months in the dark. The torture. The cold. The hunger. She thought about her crew, standing strong when everything tried to break them. She thought about the 2,000 prisoners who had found hope again because of them. We want justice, she said finally. Not revenge. Justice. For everyone the Dominion has hurt. For every species they've conquered. For every prisoner they've broken. And if they won't give us justice? Yuna's eyes hardened. Then we take it. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. The Dominion tried to bargain. They tried to threaten. They tried to offer Earth special status in exchange for abandoning the rebellion. Each time, the humans refused. On the 18th day, High Commander Desik was brought before the Galactic Assembly, a gathering of representatives from every known species. He was supposed to explain what had happened. He was supposed to tell them how he had lost to primitives with no weapons. The assembly hall was vast. Thousands of delegates from hundreds of species filled the seats. Desik stood before them, diminished, defeated, utterly broken. How did this happen? The assembly leader demanded. The silence was perfect, inescapable, foolproof. How did 47 humans bring it down? Desik was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. They didn't need weapons. They didn't need technology. They didn't need superior numbers. He paused. Their will was enough. Their stubborn, impossible, unbreakable will. We had them in the dark for 3 months. We tortured their captain until she could barely walk. And every time we hurt them, they got stronger. Every time we tried to break them, they found new ways to resist. He looked up at the assembly with empty eyes. I have conquered 100 worlds. I have broken 1,000 species. But I cannot break humans. Because humans do not break. They bend. They wait. They plan, and then they strike. And when they strike, nothing in the universe can stop them. The hall was silent. Then, from somewhere in the back, a single delegate stood up. Then another. Then 100. Then 1,000. They were standing for humanity. They were standing for the species that had shown them what courage looked like. What hope looked like. What freedom looked like. The Valoran delegation remained seated, trembling in their chairs. In the front row, Captain Yuna watched with tears in her eyes. Her crew stood beside her. Dr. Taiho, Lieutenant Jisoo, Engineer Dohwan, Medic Sujin, Private Meirei, Ensign Hyok, all of them together, as they had been through everything. They had started as prisoners. They had become legends. Ensign Hyok was approached by reporters after the session. He was 20 years old, the youngest of the crew, and he had become a symbol of human courage throughout the galaxy. Tell us how it felt, the reporters asked. Fighting against impossible odds. Facing death every day. What made you brave? Hyok thought about the question. He remembered the cold and the dark and the fear. He remembered thinking he was going to die. He remembered Private Meirei teaching him to fight. And Medic Sujin making him eat when he wanted to give up. And Dr. Taiho telling stories that made him feel like everything would be okay. I was never brave, he said finally. I was terrified every day. But I wasn't alone. I had people who believed in me. People who helped me when I was weak. People who never gave up, so I couldn't give up either. He paused. That's what being human is about. Not being brave alone. Being scared together and fighting anyway. The quote spread across the galaxy. Within days, it was painted on walls and printed on signs and whispered in the dark places where hope had almost died. Being scared together and fighting anyway. 1 year later, Keseth became the first Valoran ambassador to Earth. He arrived with fear in his heart, expecting hatred and rejection. Instead, he found Captain Yuna waiting to welcome him, You opened the armory, she said. You saved lives. That matters more than where you were born. I don't understand your species, Keseth admitted. I'm not sure I ever will. Yuna smiled, that calm, kind smile that had haunted Desik's nightmares. That's okay. We'll teach you. Medic Sujin opened a clinic on a border world, treating any species that walked through her doors. Engineer Dohwan returned to his engines, happy to be forgotten. Dr. Taiho established the Galactic Rights Commission, working to free prisoners and protect the vulnerable across the stars. Lieutenant Jisoo was offered admiralty. She refused. I stay with my captain, she said simply. Wherever she goes, I go. And Captain Yuna? She was invited to speak before the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from 100 species waited to hear what humanity wanted from the universe. She stood at the podium small, quiet, unremarkable. Just a woman from a little blue planet. Just a captain who had refused to break. You asked what we want, she began. We want what we've always wanted, to explore, to grow, to connect. We didn't come to the stars looking for enemies. We came looking for friends. We were thrown into the darkest prison in the galaxy. We were tortured and starved and tested in ways I hope you never experience. And we survived. Not because we're stronger than other species. Not because we're smarter. But because we refuse to give up on each other. That's what makes us human. Not our technology. Not our weapons. Our will. The same will that brought us out of caves and across oceans and into the stars. You can kill us. You cannot break us. So here is our offer to the galaxy. Stand with us, and we'll stand with you. Fight against us, and we'll fight back. But know this, we will never stop. We will never surrender. We will never abandon those who need us. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Some were afraid. Some were hopeful. All were listening. The universe is vast and full of dangers. But it's also full of wonder, full of possibility, full of beings who want nothing more than to be free. We are humanity. We've been knocked down 1,000 times. We always get up. And now we're here, among the stars, ready to help anyone who needs us. Welcome to the future. The assembly hall erupted, cheering, applause, tears. 100 species, united for the first time in history, celebrating the small pink creatures who had taught them what courage really meant. In the front row, the Valoran delegation sat in stunned silence. Their empire was crumbling. Their certainties were shattered. And they finally understood what they had discovered in that small blue planet. Not prey, not primitives. Something far more dangerous. Humans. And humans do not break. They never have. They never will.